Good afternoon to everybody. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the Planning Committee, other members of the Council and officers in attendance at today's meeting, which is the Planning Committee for the 4th of May. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. Please could all in attendance follow the Council's ground rules for virtual meetings, which have been well circulated. In particular, to reduce feedback and background noise, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Only speak when invited to do so by me as the Chairman. Please use the raise hand button in Microsoft Teams to indicate that you would like to speak, and remember to use the lower hand button once you have been called to speak. When members need to vote on a planning application, I will call each member to vote in turn. Please express your vote verbally with for or against or abstain. In accordance with the government's regulations regarding virtual meetings and remote participation, all participants must be able to hear and be heard by all in attendance. When voting, I ask that all members of the Planning Committee do so in the acknowledgement that they have heard for the duration of the item and can therefore vote in accordance with the regulations. In the event of any technical problems, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. Please bear with us in these circumstances. If any individual loses connection and the meeting can practically continue with a quorum, it will do so. For the benefit of all participants and those viewing the meeting, I will now call the name of each member of the committee and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at this meeting. As I previously mentioned, I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the meeting. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Sue Benison.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Present, Chairman.
I have apologies from Rebecca Clark. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Present, Chairman.
Apologies again from Councillor Kate Crizell. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Present, Chairman.
I have apologies from Councillor Barry Dunning. Councillor Alan Glass.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor David Hawkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Present.
Councillor Joe Riley. Joe, you're muted.
Present, Chairman.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Councillor Tony Ring.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
In attendance, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Here, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Malcolm Wade also apologies. So we have 5 apologies. Could you confirm that for me, please, Karen?
We've got apologies from Councillors Wade, Crizell, Clark and Dunning. So that's just 4.
Okay.
No.
They're not from, sorry, from Kate Crizell?
Checking all with committee members.
Yep. Kate Crizell, Rebecca Clark, Barry Dunning and Malcolm Wade.
Okay, fine.
60 members of the committee present.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I please have members to declare interests on any of these applications? I can't see any hands coming up.
We've got
Yes.
hands up
Oh.
from Councillor Davis and Councillor
Sorry,
Corbridge.
sorry, I'm out of sync here. Sorry, Councillor Arthur Davis, could you declare your interest?
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 3D, 21/10173. I am a member of the Totton and Ealing Town Council, but not a member of the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 3F, application 21-10-326. I'm a member of Lymington and Pennington Town Council, but I don't sit on the Planning Committee.
Thank you very much.
We've also got hands up from Councillor Kangarani as well.
Sorry, missed that one. Councillor Kangarani.
Thank you. I'm also the same as David Arthur Davis. Live in Totton and a member of the local council, but I'm not in the planning committee.
Thank you very much.
That's item 2D, is it?
That's right, yeah.
Application 21-10173.
I think. With the paper.
Thank you. I can't see any more hands. We'll now go to application 2G, Maplefield Farm, Martin Road, Martin. Application number 20/11417. You'll find this page 59 to 68 on the agenda. We didn't have any interest on this one. So I'd like to go to the case officer, James Gilfillan. If you'd like to do your presentation, please.
Good afternoon, members. Yes, this is application at Maplefield Farm in Martin. Application site shown there in red. The scheme proposes to convert the building shown on the plan to holiday accommodation. Aerial photo showing the context of the site. You see the building in the centre of the site, some former polytunnels at the rear of the building, and green fields showing the rural context surrounding the site largely to the north, and then built properties, built form houses, and the Martin Club directly opposite across the road, and fields beyond that. For those of you familiar or not familiar, ordnance survey style plan there in the corner showing the context of the site in relation to the rest of Martin village. It's very much at the edge of the village, albeit there's no settlement boundary defining that from a planning point of view. But in terms of what you see on the ground, you can see it's very much at the sort of northwest corner of the village, which stretches along the yellow road, running through in a southeasterly direction. Blue line showing the outline of the other land owned by the applicant is a field that was associated with the agricultural use from which the barns were previously put to use. And a photo there showing outside the site, street scene style photo with the road in front and the building, well, nestled behind those trees along the boundary, the southern edge of the site. So the existing building, very much an agricultural barn style building, as I say, associated with historic uses that some of you may be familiar with. So an office there, look, and dairy related uses. Some photos showing that, give you some flavour for the style of the building as it exists on the site at present. So you have the doors, the windows, you could call that the front of the building being on this elevation here. The gable, and then those features in the background there, that gable being that section there. It's the area of hard surfacing and car parking in front of the building. There are the polytunnels I referred to that you can quite clearly see in this aerial photo. That gable structure being that one there. And then the rear of the building, a view looking from this southerly direction with the two elevations extending away from the corner of the building. So it's a single story building with a few openings on either side, very much appropriate and respective of the agricultural use it was put to. So as I say, turning to the proposed use, conversion to holiday use, looking to divide the building into two units, both of them 2-bedroom units, and cut the site in two with an area of garden associated with each of those two units, retaining the existing access in from farm track, the main road running in front of the site to the south, parking area for vehicles, and that use of the building for holiday use. Floor plans, thick red lines indicating the point at which the two halves would be divided. 2-bedroom units, a kitchen, living area, 2 bedrooms, entirely reasonable for holiday accommodation. Nothing out of the ordinary. Elevation wise, very minor changes to the appearance of the building, not requiring significant alteration or restructure, rebuilding to accommodate the proposed use. So there, as I say, the front elevation, minor changes to create new entrances, changing some windows around, bit more addition on this gable, currently blank, to again add entrance doors, windows, and a pergola style structure. Southwest elevation, which is the one that presents to the road, minor projecting bay window addition and other windows to serve the use inside. The other two elevations, long elevation, currently blank, more openings, but within proportion to the scheme, the size of the building, and architecturally would sit comfortably on the building. And then the final elevation, presenting into the fields to the north, minor additions, and there you can see the sort of pergola porch additions. It's a very minor change to the built form of the building that exists. It's very much a conversion of that existing building, which is supported by your policies at DM13 that allows conversion of existing buildings for tourism uses, even in the open countryside. Representations received from local residents are concerned about noise and disturbance and impact on the amenity of neighbours. Here you can see the building in context with existing residential properties along the road. It's no closer to those properties than any other of the residential properties, and therefore unlikely to give rise to any impact greater than you would normally expect between neighbouring residential properties. And we do have the Martin Club immediately adjacent as well, which in any normal times I'm sure would give rise to some noise and disturbance associated with its social uses. The primary area of concern for this application, unfortunately, is the habitats issues associated with additional residential use, albeit holiday use, the impact of recreation activities on the New Forest Park, air quality, the air quality monitoring that we now are undertaking, and then increased phosphates in the Avon Valley. Has been unable to demonstrate that none of those issues will arise, and that the significant effects on those habitats can be mitigated. So whilst the lion's share of the scheme is acceptable in accordance with your policies, the recommendation is to refuse based on those nature conservation conflicts. Thank you.
Christine, you're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. I had to mute. I have a tractor running up and down in front of me, so it's a bit noisy. Okay, we have 4 speakers. First of all, I would like to go to the agent, Mr. Ashton. If you'd like to address the committee, you have 3 minutes. Mr. Ashton?
Yes. How do I come in?
Yeah, you have 3 minutes now to do your speech.
Yes. Could you tell me? I just speak, do I?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm following the case officer's report. We were encouraged by his conclusion that the scheme has economic benefits in bringing a redundant building back to use, with minor employment generated, social benefits, and the support of local services and minor environmental benefits of reuse of the building. However, he has been given flawed advice on the effect of this dairy conversion to on nature conservation interests. Firstly, no account has been taken of the fact that all wastewater from the building, both from its past use as a dairy and from the proposed use as 2 holiday units, is collected in a sealed tank and removed by an operator licensed by the Environment Agency, Rob Beale Limited of Shaftesbury, for various approved wastewater works outside the catchment of the River Avon. Neither the NFDC ecologist nor Natural England have lodged any comments on the website for this application. We can only find their responses to application number 2110003336 concerning continued use of the 28-day campsite at Maplefield Farm, which is now subject to an appeal to the Planning Inspectorate. On the 2nd of February, NFDC ecologist does not seem aware that the emptying of the Portaloos is taking place outside the River Avon catchment, and the emptying arrangements are fully verifiable and enforceable from the records of Rob Beale Limited. On 15th of March, Natural England accepts that the waste will be tankered outside the River Avon catchment and cites difficulties in monitoring and enforcing this approach. Why? They need only consult the records from the company registered by the Environment Agency to carry out this work. As far as we know, neither the NFDC ecologist nor Natural England have visited the site. However, we've been informed that Natural England have a site office and store in Damon's Farm, Martin. Within the site, they've installed a septic tank for toilets with soakaways 4 meters from the Winterbourne stream. Contents are also tankered away by the same registered operator as Maplefield Farm. Maplefield Farm's sealed tank system was installed in 2010 and approved by the NFDC Environmental Health Officer under HACCP document enforcing strict food production regs 2012 to 2017. Natural England's less satisfactory septic tank with a soakaway was installed after that date. Neither Natural England nor NFDC ecologists have provided evidence that there will be any increase in the phosphorus levels in the River Avon from the conversion of a dairy building into 2 holiday units. We contend that the conversion will have the opposite effect, that phosphate leaching from the site will be substantially reduced by converting a dairy operation to holiday units. My clients have conducted an extensive survey into holiday units and campsites in the NFDC and National Park. If the same criteria for collection and treatment of waste are applied to these, most of the holiday units and campsites in the park and surrounding New Forest areas should be closed from immediate effect. I'm not sure if committee members will find this constituents prepared to accept that. Secondly, Maplefield Farm was passed for use as a dairy farm under NVZ regulations, nitrogen and vulnerable zone. This was challenged at appeal by Savills land agents in a report commissioned by some Martin residents. The findings of this report were overturned at appeal. If the site was approved as a dairy farm, the proposed use of 2 holiday units is clearly acceptable. The runoff from the farming of dairy cows is far greater than from our current proposal to convert a dairy building to holiday units.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. You have had your 3 minutes, I think a little more as well. So thank you for that. Could I ask you please to mute now? Thank you. I'd now like to ask Mrs. Allman, who's objecting to this proposal. You have 3 minutes if you'd like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would like to point out that the planning history of this site should include the cases when it was previously known as Thistledown Farm, but still under the same ownership. The list should therefore illustrate the fact there have now been 7 applications, 4 appeals and 5 enforcements on this site under the same owner. I believe this application is fundamentally flawed, as the building in question cannot in any way whatsoever be deemed to be redundant. When it was built just over a decade ago, it was done so as to a very high specification. The application agent also has confirmed in his own application that the building remains in use, therefore it is not redundant. My understanding of the definition of a redundant building is one which is no longer fit for the purpose, for the reason for which it was originally designed. NFDC granted approval for the building for its use as office and packaging and storage. The planning officer says it has sufficient structural integrity which would be suitable for accommodation, and therefore it is without question still suitable for the purposes of using as an office, packaging and storage. I would therefore be extremely concerned were NFDC to endorse such a change of use for such a new building on a heritage field. This would also be creating 2 residential additional properties, not 1. NFDC, it should be pointed out, did not stop the use of this building for the milk processing operation run by the applicant. He himself chose to stop it when he was not permitted to live on site. However, the land and building could easily be used by someone else with a genuine horticultural or agricultural business. Because there's no accommodation on site, it makes it very much more affordable than many other properties. Regarding the removal of phosphates, I agree with what has been put in the refusal document by the planning officer, but I do not believe that any comments for Rob Beale can be seen as being independent. It's a commercial agreement they have, and it's also not entirely accurate. There certainly were some weekdays last year when Portaloos were on site other than a Friday, and they were not on site in 2018 or 19. Despite the fact the applicant has been refused permission to operate camping on this site, has had his appeal said is invalid, and has been not to operate any tourism, he is still taking bookings for camping on this site through pitchup.com and Cool Camping. I appreciate this is not the planning matter under consideration, but it illustrates his total disregard of the planning rules, and it also states that the booking sites are saying that campers until the 28th of May need to provide their own washing and toilet facilities, and there will be 2 compost loos on site. So what happens to the removal of those phosphates? These are the views of the other objectors and neighbours who will be affected by these applications, and we respectfully ask you that you refuse these applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to Mrs. Sampson on behalf of Martin Parish Council, but I just want to remind members that the facilities for tents, this is being dealt with as a separate issue. That's got nothing to do with this application. So if I can go to Mrs. Sampson, please, on behalf of the Parish Council. You have 3 minutes.
I've got all the main points in.
Good afternoon, councillors. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Martin Parish Council, who I represent, welcomes and supports the recommendations for refusal on the 2 environmental reasons. But we feel that there is another strong reason for refusal, which we would like to see included. This concerns the applicant's description of the building as redundant, and which the Parish Council considers inaccurate. He was granted permission for an office packing shed in 2010, and it was subsequently used as a milk bottling plant as part of a dairy business. And it is only that particular business which was found to be not viable. Of course, a field of 1.5 hectares cannot support a reasonable dairy herd. The Parish Council questions whether that is sufficient justification to describe the buildings as redundant, and thereby imply that holiday accommodation is the only viable alternative use. We believe, along with Councillor Heron and Cranbourne AONB, that there are other options which the applicant has neither investigated nor assessed. There must be other uses associated with plants or animals. Is NFDC really prepared to go down the route of allowing very elaborate sheds to be built on an isolated field, and then allowing the owner to cease this use and seek to convert to dwellings? This is indeed planning creep and does not bode well for our villages and district. All previous applications to create a permanent dwelling on this field have been refused. There are 2 similar heritage fields next to it, between Maple Farm and the dwellings along the roadside. How will NFDC resist similar planning creep on these fields? We therefore ask that the applicant's argument that the building is redundant for agricultural or horticultural purpose is rejected, and that this is included as a reason for refusal. Thank you, Madam
Thank you very much. I'd now like to go to Councillor Edward Heron. Can you address the committee, please, as the ward councillor?
Chairman, members, thank you for allowing me to speak to you this afternoon, and members will be aware that I have emailed members of the committee with more detail of what I'm going to say today, and that is published, I see already, on the council's planning file online. Chairman, I want to start by saying that this is not an application for an employment use. This is an application for a residential use. Holiday lets fall within use class C3, albeit they are restricted by condition, but they are not by definition an employment use. Chairman, the case officer has mentioned policy DM13, and I have that in front of me, and it's giving me a little trouble. Because members will know that that policy clearly states at the beginning it deals with tourism and visitor facilities within the defined built-up area. It does then at bullet point 1 talk about outside the defined built-up area, and that says that accommodation may be permitted where, and then it goes on to list 5 reasons. Part of farm diversification, well, we've heard from the applicant there's no farm here anymore, to extend an existing hotel or guest house, to relocate or environmental improvements or up-to-date facilities, but none of those apply in this case. So I am unsure how it is felt that this application falls within DM13 when it clearly states that it must be one of those reasons to be within policy outside the built-up area. And to remind members, Martin is not a defined village. It does not have a built-up area. Then we come to policy DM20, which members will be aware about, which is houses in the countryside. And I don't think anyone argues that this falls within permission of DM20. So we come back to DM22. But again, Chairman, and this is the case officer wishes to explain why he feels that a C3 use falls within an employment use. One can certainly let one's house and have a business, but that does not make it an employment use. So therefore, Chairman, I fail to see how this accords with policy. Members, I did put forward a proposal that I felt that members should refuse this application, both on the ground put forward by the officer and being contrary to other policies. So I would just like to actually say I think that's wrong. I would urge members to refuse this application as also being contrary to policies DM13 and DM20. I don't think you should mention DM22. As I said, this is not an employment use. Chairman, members, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Can I just come back to James Gideon on that point?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I've obviously had a look at policy DM13 and the full wording. So looking at what Councillor Heron was referring to, part of a farm, so DM13, obviously adopted policy, tourism and visitor facilities, as Councillor points out, refers to the built-up areas, and then it turns to outside the defined built-up area, development to provide visitor accommodation will only be permitted where it is part of a farm diversification project or through the conversion of existing buildings in accordance with policy DM22. So there we get the full wording of that bullet point where it refers to the conversion of existing buildings. And then if we go on towards the end of the policy, in the countryside, any new development should be of appropriate design and scale in keeping with the rural character of the area. And I think you'll accept from my presentation that obviously the existing building is already there, but the minor alterations to it don't fundamentally change its contribution to the character of the area. And should not result in significant harmful impacts on the countryside or rural communities. Where the development involves the reuse of an existing building, it must be one of an appropriate scale and appearance to its rural setting and structurally sound so that it can be reoccupied without major rebuilding. So that was where I was trying to explain to you about the fabric of the building being able to accommodate the conversion without other further extensive reconstruction. So in terms of other aspects of DM13, I think the recommendation examines the full gambit of the policy to bring forward the recommendation that it does, I think in terms of the councillors' comments regarding aspects of the policy, that's all good and well, but I think the policy goes further than that he's presented in his written statement.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any further questions for our officer or public speakers? Councillor Tony Ring.
Thank you, Chair. Just a consideration. I'm thinking within this, in a different context. Some little while ago, we spoke about dark skies policy applying to Martin, and I wonder whether there is scope for consideration under that concern in this application.
James, would you like to answer that?
Well, yes, it falls within the A and B area where the A and B have that policy guidance in their management document. I think we have to be mindful of the existing use, or the use as a agricultural building, and the light that was emitted by that against any increased light based on the current proposal. And I would advise members that would be negligible difference and not something that you could find fault with or harm to the A and B.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Benson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ring, did that answer your question?
I beg your pardon, Chair. Yeah, I merely said thank you, but in fact, I would slightly challenge it that use for holiday lets is likely to have rather greater impact on lighting and on the timing at which lighting would be a consideration. But I accept the officer's point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got several questions for Mr. Ashton, if I may, and then one for our case officer. So I'll start with Mr. Ashton. Mr. Ashton, you mentioned that at the present moment there are sealed tanks on the site, and these are the contents are taken away by lorry. Can you tell me how many trips this involves?
You are muted, Mr. Ashton.
On, say, a daily basis, if you could. Can't hear you, Mr. Ashton.
Could you unmute Mr. Ashton, please? Okay, while Mr. Ashton is trying to unmute, are there any other councillors that wish to ask questions?
Well, Chairman, perhaps I could ask the officer the question to the officer whilst Mr. Ashton is trying to unmute.
Okay.
On page 63, under the design, site layout, etc. My question is, if this application were to be granted, would there be the ability to be able to condition no aerials or no satellite dishes? That's to the case officer.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I was just reading that section of my report before answering and see what I'd said at that point.
You're talking about flues and vents. Yeah. Well, but then you go on to mentioning aerials and satellite dishes. So my concern would be, should this application be granted, would there be the ability to condition that no such aerials or satellite dishes would be put on the roof?
Yes, you could use a condition if you could find good reason for it, or planning reasons for it, sorry. I mean, I would encourage or discourage you from taking that approach, being mindful of perhaps those elements being part and parcel of the principle of the reuse of the building, or the use that it's being put to, rather. And I'm pretty sure that there is already some TV aerial antenna on the building at present. And potentially
not shown in the diagrams you sent us.
Well, then I would have to be reliant on the.
No, I beg your pardon. Yes, I do see one in the corner in a photograph.
Yes, so that's what I was going to suggest.
Yes.
We looked at the photos.
Yes,
not my.
Correct.
But anyway, in terms of that serving perhaps whatever reason that it had been installed previously. But addition of further such features to facilitate a successful enterprise alternative use of the building. I mean, ultimately, if the principle of the conversion to holiday use is being accepted, I think we would have to recognise that those sorts of additions are going to go hand in hand with that. And of course, you look at the houses along the opposite side of the road, and I can't imagine there's anything restricting installation of such features on those houses.
Okay.
That are really opposite.
One further question to you, if I may. I think it was Mrs. Valentine that talked about the construction of this building was quite substantial. That wasn't the word she used, but can you comment? I mean, it looks to me like it's an ordinary timber building on probably a concrete base, but was it built in more substantial ways?
Well, I certainly couldn't comment on the construction at point of construction. Yes, I'd say a very solid concrete base from my visit. Blockwork walls, I seem to recall from my visit inside the building. Hopefully, if Mr. Ashton can rejoin us, he might be able to clarify. However, the internal alterations to provide the conversion could be as simple as stud walls and the appropriate soundproofing that you might find in any residential alterations that you do to your own home, where you might be partitioning off a larger space to make two smaller rooms, except for that point of subdivision between the two structures where perhaps there has to be further soundproofing and or fireproofing. But clearly those are for other people to opine on.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Ashton, are you able to answer my questions?
Councillor Branscombe, can we just see if we can get back to Mr. Ashton? Can you unmute Mr. Ashton? No, we still can't hear you.
You should be able to unmute on the top right hand side of the screen. Can you see like a microphone? It's possibly two along from leave. If you hover over it, it should say unmute maybe. I don't know if you've got like a box with a arrow pointing upwards, and then next to it is the microphone one where you can unmute. No, we still can't hear you.
That's a shame, because that was an important question, but we're going to have to, I think, leave that for now. Sue, did you have another one?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm wondering if perhaps if that was a question I needed an answer to. My other question to Ashton was regarding the holiday use. Was he envisaging it being 52 weeks of the year?
Well, again, we can't get an answer because he's still muted.
I'm wondering if somebody could send him an email with those two questions and he could email back the answer.
Can I go back to James Gilfillan, please? Can you answer that?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to answer the question for him, but from our point of view, there was no suggestion of it being less than 52 years, and there was no expectation that we would impose 52 weeks. Good point. And no expectation that we would look to limit it to any periods of the year. I think I covered that in my report because it was raised by some of the representations received, that there would be no reason to control it or restrict it. And again, I don't want to suggest that this is an obvious, the absolute answer, but in terms of tankering away the foul water, I suspect it would be something that would come down to the level of use, and how quickly the septic tank is filled, and perhaps being able to predict how regularly it is emptied is not something that you could do until it actually gets used.
Yeah, I think Councillor Benison that's it is something you can't predict at this moment. But can I come to Claire Upton Brown? You wanted to come in here?
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to suggest if Mr. Ashton isn't able to unmute, whether he could use the chat box and then someone could read out his response so that the committee were made aware of his response, if that's going to help them inform their decision this afternoon.
He was unmuted a moment ago and then he's back on mute again. I don't know if you can try one more time to unmute yourself. No.
This is really disappointing.
Can I move on to Councillor Anne Bellows while we're waiting to see if we can get contact? Councillor Anne Bellows, you had a question?
Yeah, I've just got a quick question for James, please. Is a C3 dwelling house classed as an employment use?
Well, no, it's not an employment use, but it was a case of it contributing through investment in the economy and the jobs that could come along, on the side, cleaning, any management, any other services that residents of visitors would look to use, and would be a benefit of the scheme.
Okay, thank you.
Well, apart from Councillor Benison, there are no other questions, but we still haven't got contact with Mr. Ashton. Was that the
and in fact, Chairman, if I may, that was my third question, was this going to be a serviced accommodation? So in other words, the two holiday lets would need to be cleaned and restocked with towels and things. So to a certain extent, there is a proportion of employment use there. But we really do need Mr. Ashton to answer these questions for us.
While we're waiting, Councillor Joe Riley, you had a question? Councillor Riley?
I won't be voting on this application because I've lost part of the presentation on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go back then to Claire Upton Brown?
But thank you, Chair. I mean, I think in terms of informing the committee, we can confidently say that this accommodation will have to be cleaned, because otherwise it wouldn't be able to be rented, particularly at the moment where extra strict cleaning regimes apply to all rented accommodation. So, Councillor Benison, I think as officers we can safely advise you that that is the case, and if that's helpful.
Councillor Anne Bellows, did you want to ask another question?
Is it possible to ask Councillor Edward Heron another question, please?
In this case, I'll let that happen, yeah.
Thank you. So this is for Councillor Edward Heron. Does DM22, should that apply here or not?
Chairman, thank you. My view is DM22 clearly states at the beginning of its wording that this is a policy that applies to employment development in the countryside. I may build a house and let it occasionally. That doesn't make it an employment use. Therefore, I would argue that the reference in DM13 to DM22 does not apply here. This is not an employment use. The case officer has said it is not an employment use. Therefore, I cannot see how you can reasonably approve this under DM13. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, there are no more questions and we still haven't been able to contact our speaker. So we'll now go into debate. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of quick comments. Firstly, I want to endorse what Councillor Tony Ring said. I think it would be extremely difficult to monitor the light output from holiday accommodation units because people do actually bring their own as well as everything else. The second point is, like Councillor Riley, I lost connection twice, so I can't vote on this one.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I thought I would start the debate by actually because normally we talk often about street scenes, neighbourhood plans and things like that. We don't often have the opportunity to actually look in depth at a rural application. And this is a rural application. It is, you know, it's not what you call within a village or within a large farm, or where often holiday lets are situated. This is just a building in a field that somebody has decided with a long planning history should be turned into living accommodation. And so I have great concerns about this, particularly when the AONB actually also objects to it, and the parish council. And I think there is good reason to object to this, because all across that part of Hampshire, right, you know, the New Forest across, there are lots of fields with lots of old buildings in them, little sheds and things like that. And it's very difficult once you actually permit one building to become basically a dwelling, even though it's only used for part of the year, then that is actually, are we setting a precedent in that particular AONB area? And we've got to look after our AONB areas. So so that is where I'm coming from. I don't know how other people feel, but I think we need to be very careful to look after this part of the countryside, and that's why we've got policies. The rules say that this is what we must do. We must look after these areas. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll wait to hear what anybody else has to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. The second reason for refusal is with regard to the habitats regulations. Now, I find this quite difficult to be able to judge this one, since we haven't heard how many traffic movements are involved in these sealed tanks, and the applicant made it quite clear that the sealed tank, the contents of these sealed tanks were being disposed of outside of this area of concern. So I have real difficulty in coming to a judgment on this one. Holiday use is set to be 52 weeks, we believe, but there will be some employment use involved in servicing those two units. I'm really not quite sure how. I find it very difficult to be able to make a judgment on something where we're not able to get all the information. I don't know if the Mr. Ashton is back in on our meeting. He seems to have disappeared completely now.
There seems to be a lot of background noise. I'm not sure if that's Mr. Ashton trying to get back on or not, but
I can't see he's in the list now, Chairman.
And what your comments. So let's leave that for the moment and go on to Councillor Maureen Holding, please.
Yes, thank you. I agree with what Councillor Erin Heron said, and Anne Sevier. I do feel that there is enough information here without the gentleman having to come back to us, because I do think it has been covered in the papers. And I am going to propose refusal on this, and I am going to include policies DM13, DM20 and DM22 in this, as Councillor Heron has suggested. I have read these policies through, and I do agree with that. I really feel that to take away this beautiful part of the countryside and to just stick something like that in the middle of the field with no one on site is not a good thing to do. And I'm sure we can find lots of other things.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Sorry, everybody's shouting at me. Was that Councillor Davies?
Carried on.
Yes, I concur with what Councillor Holding said, and will second that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I come in to Claire Upton Brown, please?
Yeah, maybe the moment's slightly past, but I just wanted to comment to Councillor Benison. There has been a detailed assessment in terms of impact on our habitat. The fact that the septic tank may be discharged into another watercourse, and in this case into a watercourse where we have nitrates problems, and therefore causing a different issue, isn't something that we can step aside from. So just to advise the committee, we have fully tested this issue, and do not believe that we can support the proposal as it stands, regardless of the number of lorries that may be involved in emptying their septic tank. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask James, did you want to say something?
Well, Claire's largely covered what I was going to say, but there was, in respect of the question about the vehicle movements, I mean, ultimately, I was going to say that was somewhat of a red herring. As Claire said, it's where the wastewater is taken to that's the issue for us. Unless, of course, the council was concerned about highway safety and the number of vehicle movements that it would generate, which ultimately my advice or my view from my report would be that it would be sufficiently minor, especially in comparison to the previous agricultural use, that highway safety wouldn't be prejudiced.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, I'm going to wind up this debate, and obviously we're having difficulty still with Mr. Ashton, so we can't continue with that. I can't, if he is there, you have another minute, but I don't think we can get him back. No, doesn't sound like it. So, Mrs. Allman, you have a minute. If you'd like a minute to sum up, please, and you are on mute. Thank you.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would say that the arguments around employment, I think that would be pretty negligible if you weigh that up against the balance of, somebody getting paid for some cleaning and changing towels, etc., as opposed against the floodgates that could open in terms of this change of use for a very modern building. Surely that could then set the precedent that anybody could put up a building on a field within a few years' time, say, I'd actually now like to turn that into a house, or in this case, 2 houses. Also, if you do not put any conditions on it, which is what seems to be being proposed here, I hope you don't go this way, but if you did go that way, surely you are just endorsing housing.
Thank you very much. You have had your minute. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs. Sampson, you had 1 minute. Have we lost Mrs. Sampson?
Sorry, on the dark skies issue, I support what the councillor said, that the use of that agricultural building was so negligible and hardly ever at night. It really is a field for horticulture. It's unfortunate that the owner wished to call it a farm and to put this horticultural building up and then expect all the benefits that would come from diversification of farming. This isn't actually what's going on this site. It's more about a dwelling. I'll leave it there and just hope you'll support Councillor Heron.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Heron, if you can sum up, please.
Chairman, thank you. I have little to add. I think it's very clear that this is not an employment use. Just because you use a house to generate some money doesn't make it employment. As it's not an employment use, it doesn't fall within DM13 and it certainly doesn't fall within DM20. And I would urge members to refuse this on those grounds, as well as the very important habitats ones. I'm sure the habitats ones may be overcome in some time, but that doesn't mean that this has been a backdoor route to get a couple of houses in the open countryside that we would never have permitted in any other way, and our policies themselves do not permit.
Thank you very much. Members will move to the vote. So we have a proposal from Councillor Holding to accept the recommendation, which is to refuse, and that has been seconded by Councillor Davis. I know we've had some connection problems, so I'll still go down through the list and then you can just tell me whether you're voting or not. So we're voting for, which is to refuse, against or abstain. So Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Benison.
Chairman, are we going to add those two conditions that Edward has just outlined?
Yes, I suppose we would.
Can you confirm that for me, please, Claire Upton Brown or James?
So members, my understanding is that you are now voting to refuse with an additional reason refusal relating to the proposed development being contrary to policy DM 13, 20 and 22 and therefore harmful to the rural character of that area.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. So Councillor Sue Benison, how are you voting?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge, you've had connection problems.
Yeah, apologies, abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Kangarani. Councillor Kangarani, do we have you with us?
I think he's left the meeting.
Okay. And Councillor Joe Riley, you had problems?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry. Was that for? I really didn't catch that. I don't know if anybody else did.
Abstain.
Abstain. Thank you very much. Abstain. Okay. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
Thank you. And myself for. So that refusal has been carried. Can I have confirmation of the vote, please?
Hello, we've got 12 votes for, we've got an abstention and then 2 members were unable to vote because they lost connection.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I've lost the screen entirely. Am I still there?
You are, Councillor Holding.
Thank you. I'll try and get
I'm
that.
going to just adjourn for a couple of minutes while we change speakers. And
Thank you.
Joe, can you take your hand down, please? Members, we will continue with our next application, which is 21/10173 Ealing Wharf, Ealing Totton, and this can be found on the agenda pages 33 to 40. Just to remind members that if you have had connection problems, you won't be able to vote on the issue. Did we have, yes, we did have 2 declarations of interest on this one, didn't we? If you'd like to confirm, members, if you made your declaration. Councillor Davies.
You're muted.
It's catching this meeting. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to reiterate what I said. I am a member of the Tottenham and Ealing Town Council, but not a member of the Planning Committee, and this is in my district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Kangarani, we don't have, he was the other interest. So we'll go straight to the case officer, Warren Simmons, for your presentation then, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so planning application 21/10173. Let me see if I can put the presentation up on the screen. Okay, are you able to see that, Chairman?
We are, thank you.
Thank you, right. Okay, so the application then relates to an existing industrial building located at Ealing Wharf. The building is relatively modest in size. It's approximately 78 square metres and with a height of just under 4 metres under a mono-pitch roof. It's an open fronted building. And it's located, if you can see my cursor in this area here. So if I move on to the next slide, this is a drawing of the building. I say mono-pitch roof, open fronted, pallet storage building. And there's an indication of where the building is, Ealing Lane on the left hand side of it there, up against the boundary. So this is an existing building which has been on the site since 2006, so 15 years now, under a series of temporary consents. Just running through my photographic slides, this is from Ealing Lane looking towards the building, so it's fairly well screened with existing boundary features. On this one, from slightly further away, I've added an arrow at the approximate location of the building within the Ealing Wharf site. And again, it's very difficult to see from Ealing Lane. So, as I say, the application is for the retention of the building. It was initially allowed in 2006 under a temporary permission, and there were a series of renewals of that temporary permission, 2009, 2012, 2014. The applicant now seeks to retain the building permanently. There have been 2 different representees writing in with concerns and in objection to the application. I'll just draw members' attention to one item of late correspondence, which was a further letter of representation which was received yesterday from a Mr. Atkins, and that he has already written in previously on this application, so that's his second letter on there, and he again raises concerns in respect of visual impact and noise disturbance in the local area. And I think he raised also concerns in respect of fire hazard and hazard of pallets being blown over in the wind. So the application building, as I say, is relatively modest, 78 square metres in footprint area, just under 4 metres in height, situated close to the boundary, but it's fairly well screened within the local area. In 2006, this temporary consent was granted, and there were some issues with noise and the adjacent dwellings in the first 3 years. There were environmental health, at least one complaint that I'm aware of in those first 3 years. And then in 2009, when the temporary consent was re-established, there was a condition put on there to try and mitigate noise and impact on neighbours. The noise concerns seem to be from the use of a pallet gun and from making and repairing pallets in the building. So the current there've been no environmental health complaints since 2009, and so whilst there are concerns raised locally by residents in respect of noise, there haven't been any specific complaints to environmental health. The environmental health officer has commented, and he said he was aware of earlier noise complaints associated with the building and its use, mostly linked to a nail gun and pallet dismantler. However, it's currently understood that such operations and equipment are imminently due to be relocated within Ealing Wharf to a building that's further away from the dwellings, and therefore the application now only relates to the storage of pallets within the building. It's understood that this activity has occurred for some considerable time within the building without cause for complaint. So the environmental health officer raises no objection. He did suggest an hours of use condition, but that wouldn't be appropriate to a pure storage use, because obviously outside of the hours of use you'd have to remove the storage use, which wouldn't be practicable. The MPPF, as I detailed in my report, advises against continual sort of serial temporary consents and says that should be avoided, and the application should either be approved permanently or once there's been a trial period, it should be either approved permanently or refused if there are grounds to do so. The applicant has volunteered to accept a condition that the building is now solely used for storage of pallets with no assembly or other works involved in the building. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report. Thank you. Sorry, Chairman, you're muted at the moment.
Sorry, this mute. Mr. John Scheuer, do we have you with us?
He's asked us to read out his written representation.
Okay, if you can do that then, please.
Okay. So these are Mr. Scheuer's representations. I would like to say there is not really a great deal more we can do to assist the residents in noise reduction. We have relocated all machinery and labour at considerable expense to another location well away from the area in question. With regard to the building, it has been on site since 2006 and has been the subject of several renewals and is essential for storage. It is a simple three-sided building that has had temporary planning for 15 years. The shelter is now storage only, so very little noise. Associated Pallets Limited have been operating from this site in Ealing Wharf since 1993 and employ around 20 young people from the surrounding area. We have only 2 lorries, the vast majority of lorries belonging to hauliers on site and have nothing to do with our company. All vehicles arrive and leave via Station Road, the old entrance from Ealing Lane being closed many years ago. I understand that permission was about to be granted for permanent retention of storage on the 5th of April, but there was an objection from a local resident, and that Councillor David Harrison has objected to the proposal 1 week before the application would have been dealt with. With respect, the concerns raised should have already been addressed in Mr. Simmons' report. I very much hope that your committee will accept the planning officer's recommendation and the conditions suggested.
Thank you very much. We then go to questions, and so we've only got the officer here to answer the questions. Councillor Davies, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I know this area very well. I used to live in the area some years back. The actual visibility point, I don't really accept because it is sort of hidden behind a hedge and behind the fences. But the crucial bit here is the noise, and the conditions have to be quite rock solid, which is the condition 2. Condition 2, which is the noise emitted from the development hereby approved shall be at least lower than the existing background level. That is crucial because it's all about noise. And the other one is condition number 3, which is the officer Moran has said that the applicant wishes to has, or I don't know if he actually has, but will be moving the repair element of this this place to another area further away from the houses. And that is very crucial. I would love to know exactly when that will happen, because it's very well saying they have intentions of doing this, but if it goes on for 6-9 months, this is crucial. And there'll be no power tools if we approve this application. There'll be no power tools. It'll just be for storage only, which I haven't got a major problem with if that is borne out. So that's where I stand as well.
Thank you. My understanding is that the nail gun operation has already been moved, but if Warren would like to confirm that and answer the other questions, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's my understanding as well, and I think the applicant's statement just reiterated that those activities involving tools and pallet guns have already been relocated somewhere else. So the proposed use of this retained building is purely storage and no other use. I'm not sure what the other question was, Chairman. Sorry.
Basically, the conditions. So the conditions 2 and 3 would operate straight away after if we do allow this permanent business to carry on. At the moment, it's being done by temporary periods of time. I could make a statement there, but I'm not going to, because we had the town council had lovely thoughts of housing on this area, but there, yeah, we know where we are. So just to these conditions, as long as they're enforced, I haven't got a problem with this thing. So it wasn't really a question, it was just an
okay. Thank you, Councillor Davis, and I think that can be confirmed. We go back to Warren Simmons. You can confirm that.
Yes, Chairman, those conditions would have an immediate effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm referring to page 36, Case Officer's Report. On the 6th paragraph down, he tells us that one of the objections is noise and disturbance caused by vehicle movements within the site. Now, we've just had a statement read out that tells us that there are only 2 lorries per day relating to this pallet storage. And I just wanted to confirm, if I may, Warren, with yourself, where the objection about the noise is concerned, is there any differentiation made between the noise just simply for this storage unit with its 2 vehicle movements a day and the rest of the site?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I don't believe that there is in this case. It's obviously the wider wharf is there and it's active. I don't think there's anything specifically that could be said that those concerns relate specifically to the retention of this building. I would envisage it being more general noise associated with the activities at the wharf.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions, if I may. Could you show chart 52 again, which shows the building in purple? I think that's the building. Are you able to do that? Yeah, that's the one. And then could you go up to the aerial shot, which is chart 50? That one. I think you put your cursor over the white square within that red box, but I think the building is in fact right on the edge, is it not? And the open side of it would be, if that's facing north, on the north side of the building. Am I correct in that understanding?
Yes, Councillor. I think the larger white building, which looks like it's got a sort of bow top on it,
yes,
that is not the subject building.
No.
That is another building. I was trying to. The building itself is behind the tall
Yes.
tree. Just get behind this. There we go. So it would be behind this tree.
Yeah.
And you can't really get a view of it from
No.
the road. So I was just trying to indicate its location behind the tree there.
But
But
the
this building
opening-
here.
Yes, the
It's not
opening
it.
side would be side on to that, what you've just described
Yes.
as a, yeah. Okay, and my second question was, on page 35, you refer to second paragraph, a suitable condition in relation to hours might be put on this application, but I don't see it in the conditions. Where
Yes, thank you. The reason for that is that the application proposes a 100% storage use only. So it wouldn't be possible to have a limit that by hours, because let's say the use was limited between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. That would mean that you couldn't have any storage outside of those hours. So it's felt that conditions 2 and condition 3 adequately cover noise mitigation for the full-time storage use.
But that could mean that they could have a vehicle delivery of storage pallets at 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Well, the vehicle movements to the wider site aren't otherwise controlled, so it would be
yes,
it would be very difficult to control the deliveries to a single building within a wider site.
Okay.
Hello, can you still hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Can you still hear me? I've just got back, actually. It's John, Associated Pallets.
Oh, okay. Well, we've kind of passed over, but as you're here, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Okay, I mean, my statement really is based around the email that I sent to Christine. And really it just reiterated that, really, which is we've relocated the workforce, the machinery and everything from that store. That store has been there probably 15 years. We have had, as you well know, I'm sure, temporary planning permissions, orders on it. But because there's now, I mean, even if that was taken away, I mean, there's no reason for it to be taken down now, because there's absolutely no noise coming from that building whatsoever. And we would just use it as a temporary store for all the plastic products we bring in from abroad. So there'd be a lot of movement around there. And if it was taken down, we still need that area for storage anyway. It just means it wouldn't be covered. So we spent quite a lot of money actually relocating to, in fact, we've taken on a new lease on a building where we've moved everything well away from the residents. And I've actually been over there and I've gone down the side of Ealing Lane and checked for noise. And I used to do that a lot actually, but I was away for a long time last year. So I wasn't really monitoring things as well as I could have done. But I suppose my point is, it would, you know, the building itself is no nuisance to anybody.
Okay, is that the end of your statement?
Really, yes, I suppose it is.
Okay,
Really.
thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman, could I ask Mr. Sawyer my question about vehicle movements and hours?
You can.
Mr. Sawyer, I was asking our case officer whether there could be some hours of working condition put on. So I'll ask you the same question, not that question, but how do you envisage the vehicle movements and the use of this building Are you going to have vehicle movements in sort of normal working hours? Would you say?
We do anyway. I mean, the only vehicle movements we've got apart from our 2 vehicles is maybe half a dozen or so lorries that come in during the day. Okay, sometimes early morning, but there's no machinery noises, and I'm sure there's an awful lot more noise come from the amount of vehicles that come into the site generally from other transport companies. We're really from a lorry point of view, we really are very, very low noise emissions, really. So just the 2 Mercedes we have.
So you're saying a couple of vehicles who would be putting pallets into this building on a daily basis?
Oh, no, there'd be no movement in that building whatsoever. The main movement is over on the new workshop area, which we've now taken on. No, that would just be a store. Now, I think we'd have hardly any movement to and from that store every day. It's just a store. Occasionally, there'd be something we'd need to maybe get from there. But generally speaking, the amount of movement and noise, I mean, I'd be quite happy to monitor it with anybody that wants to come and check with me. But I can assure you that the noise would be very negligible, and certainly absolutely nothing like there was before. And a lot of that was because I think the workshop got so busy. That was one of the problems. It wasn't, obviously the noise was beginning to increase. So we knew we had to.
So now what you're saying is there will be very few movements of pallets in and out of this building.
In fact, there'll be no pallets going in and out that building. There'll just be products like small plastic boxes that will go there to keep out of the weather, really, more than anything. But our movement of plastic is far, far less than our movement of wooden pallets. And all that is done over the other side of the yard, mainly. When I say the other side of the yard...
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chairman.
I think that's been well covered. Claire, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to advise the committee that conditions have to meet the test and have to be enforceable. And I think the case officer has explained in some detail how a condition around limited the number of vehicles coming in would not be an enforceable condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll debate this now, please. Councillor Sevier?
Yes, obviously, I think this is really quite a straightforward one. This is an industrial area on a wharf where things happen, work is done, and the fact that the noisy bit has been moved out of this site, we have strong conditions, which we are told will be enforceable the moment the permission is given. I see at the moment no reason myself for us to go against the recommendation of the officer, which is to grant. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are you proposing that, or?
Yes, I'm quite happy to propose, Madam Chairman, that we accept the recommendation of the officer on the plan.
And a seconder, Councillor Glass?
I would second that.
Okay, I think Councillor Glass got in first.
Yes, fine.
Okay, Sue, is that a new hand?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm looking back at page 35. It says in our report, further temporary consent was granted. No, sorry, not that line. The application that has now been submitted seeks to retain the pallet storage building on a permanent basis. I guess I got a little bit slightly confused because I read pallet storage and thought there were going to be pallets being moved in and out, but it seems it's going to be storage of other smaller things, so I don't have a problem.
There's no room for pallets.
Well enough. I think we've debated this well enough, so we'll move to the debate. Mr. Sawyer, sorry, we'll move to the debate. Mr. Sawyer, you just have 1 minute if you want to sum up.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people working there. We are a growing business and we're doing our best to keep the residents happy there, and we will continue doing so in every way we can. Yeah, we've got a good workforce there, and we really, taking that storage unit down it would cause us a problem, to be honest. And there's not really any reason for it if there's any small project. In fact, it's not even big enough for pallets. You know, it's just not designed. It was just a workshop where, you know, timber went in and pallets would come out. It was never pallets that were stored there. But now that we've moved the workshop, we're just going to use it for small products that we're going to store, keeping out of the weather.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sawyer.
Okay, thank you.
Members, then we'll now go to the vote. So the recommendation is to grant, subject to conditions, and that's been proposed by Councillor Sevier and seconded by Councillor Glass. And again, if you had any connection problems, you won't be able to vote. So Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
4.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
4.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Alan Glass.
4.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Maureen Holding. 4. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
4.
We don't have Councillor Kangarani. Councillor Joe Riley.
4.
Councillor Tony Ring.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
4.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Abstain. Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor, oh, no more. That's me, and I'm 4. Thank you very much. If we can confirm that vote, please.
Hello, we've got 14 votes for and 1 abstention, so that carries the motion to grant.
Okay, thank you. That concludes this item. I'm going to adjourn just while we change speakers, and I will adjourn for a break after the next application. So this is just to change speakers. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll now move on to application 21/10131. This is Site L, Pond 1 East Road, Marchwood Industrial Estate. This can be found on pages 41 to 52 on the agenda. And again, just to remind you about connection problems. Did we have any interests on this one? I don't think we did. No hands going up. Okay, can we go over then to Warren again, please? Warren Simmons, if you'd like to give your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Are you seeing the committee slide?
We do. We have, yeah.
Right, okay, thank you. So the application relates to an area of Marchwood Industrial Estate, Marchwood Industrial Park. There's a map showing where that is, and the application is for reserved matters. An outline permission was granted in 2012, and the outline permission granted on this land are flexible employment uses, B1, B2 and B8, including open storage and associated parking and landscaping, and there was groundworks involving partially infilling the pond. So this current application is for reserved matters in terms of landscaping and layout and scale, so and appearance. So the running through the slides, we've got the application site, which is something approaching 5 hectares, which is under a sort of variety of different surfacing treatments at the moment. There are some uses that have been going on the site which haven't been authorised in terms of planning permission, but this application seeks reserved matters, and then that would be regularised. So here we go. The red line area shows what we're considering for this reserved matters application today. The blue line area is slightly larger, and it includes some areas which have been dealt with separately under separate reserve matters applications. So we're only considering within the red line area here today with this under this application. So the application is the development and setting out of 4 plots within Site L for the purposes of B8 open storage use. Each plot will comprise of a single-storey modular building, some associated car parking and cycle storage, and fencing, and the uses involved will centre around B8 open storage. So you can see here that you've got South Road. Can you see my cursor, Chairman, coming in there?
Yes,
so you've got South Road, which I'll show you some photographs of shortly, which has been finished and landscaped, which leads into the 4 different areas. 3 of the areas are accessed from South Road. That's L3, L4 and 5, which is one combined area, and L2.3, whereas L6 at the bottom there is accessed from Central Crescent. And these access points were authorised under the outline application, so they've already been approved, as has the principle of the uses. Some of the fencing is already in situ, but the application, this reserve matters, does include all the rest of the fencing and gates and landscaping proposals. So here we've got just an illustration of the wire mesh fencing, but there are some photos which I'll show you shortly which show it in situ, so you'll see it anyway. Again, these are gates which sort of follow the scale of the fencing. This is a plan which shows the existing site in terms of hard surfacing. So you've got some tarmac in L3, and then the rest of the sites are split into consolidated scalpings and more loose sort of gravel. So at the moment, the surfacing is not as it would be finished. So the proposal is for it all to be impermeably hard surfaced. I'll just add at this time that the matters of drainage have already been dealt with by condition on the outline, and the drainage scheme has been approved on that. So each of these 4 sections will have a little modular building on, well, not really stilts, but blocks. And so there's a picture of all 4 of them, they're all the same. And so here we go, there's South Road, and you can see the landscaping strips that have been put in. You can also see the perimeter fencing that exists, and a lot of this is as proposed. Again, this is South Road looking towards L2.3, which currently got a few cars and a trailer in it, and the landscaping strip along there. This is looking again into L3, some lorries at the back. This is L3 where its entrance is. The gates will be here. In fact, I think the gates might be there, but they're just swung open at the moment. At the moment, there's container storage going on in that one. So L4 and L5, which are sort of combined site, they've not really been consolidated very much. It's fairly loose infill material gravel on there. In the background is the pond, which has associated landscaping as part of the outline and part of this reserve matters. This is the bottom end of South Road, which will be amended. So these fences aren't quite in the right place here, but it will be as per set out in the submitted drawings. Entrance into L2.3. On the left is L6, which the far end of which is the most sensitive part of the site in terms of the amenity of neighbours. We'll come on to that shortly. L2.3 entrance again. So there's good illustration actually here of the proposed type of fencing there compared to this palisade fencing which is existing. So that's the bottom end of South Road, but that will be it won't go as far as that. It will be it will be amalgamated into one of the sites. So that area that I was just talking about is there where I'm indicating, so that will become part of L4 and L5. I think that's as far as I got on that one. So there are just looking at L6, there's some houses off here to the southwest. Now, they're the closest houses to the application site, and they're the most sensitive in terms of being receptors for any noise and disturbance. Part of the outline sectioned off it almost in a straight line carrying all the way down L6, sectioned off this part of L6 here as having no B2 storage. So the uses that have been allowed over the whole site are B1, B2 and B8, including open storage. But the only stipulation on those uses was that this sort of triangle almost down here, there were no B2 uses, because B2 use has the potential to be the most noisy and to have the most impact on the neighbouring properties there. So the application really follows on from the outline. There's not really much more to say about that it's open storage. The outline had some indicative drawings that had buildings on, but they were indicative only, they were an illustration only, and as it turns out, that's not what's been applied for. It's purely open storage use. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out at the conclusion of the report. And I would just point out that the conditions include condition 5, which relates to that area of L6 where there are no B2 uses allowed, and that restricts the height of container storage within that same area to a height of 10 metres, which I think approximately would be 4 containers in height. And that's my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers. First of all, I go to Mr. Collier, the agent. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. Mr. Collier.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. I speak on behalf of my client, Associated British Ports, who are the applicant for the Reserved Matters application that is before you. The purpose of this Reserved Matters application is to bring forward employment development that will create additional jobs within New Forest District. The application site is fully within the Marchwood Industrial Park, an area allocated in the New Forest District local plan for the development, redevelopment or intensification of employment uses. Development at the application site within use classes B1B, B1C, B2 and B8, including open storage, has already been granted planning permission, as recognised by the case officer in his report, through the outline planning consent granted in 2013. The Reserved Matters application before you has therefore been submitted pursuant to condition 1 of that outline planning permission, with the purpose solely to approve the details of scale, layout, appearance and landscaping as required by that condition. The Reserved Matters application is to enable the use of the site for B8 open storage purposes under the terms of the outline planning permission, and will enable an area of currently underutilised land to be used and thereby create additional jobs. The applicant is aware of Marchwood Parish Council's consultation comment on the application. However, as your officer makes clear in the report, the comment made by the Parish Council is unfounded, as the principle of the use which is proposed has already been approved by the outline planning permission, and as such it cannot now be revisited in the determination of this application. In respect of the comment raised by the Environmental Health Officer in regards to noise impacts arising from the details proposed, the applicant agrees with the conclusion in the officer's report, namely that noise issues are beyond the scope of the details reserved for approval by condition 1 of the outline planning permission. We would also highlight that no other technical consultee has raised comments or concerns regarding the application. The application is supported by the NPPF, which highlights that significant weight should be placed on the need to support economic growth through the planning system, and that the planning system should encourage and not act as an impediment to economic growth. The application is also in accordance with the relevant aspects of the development plan. In conclusion, therefore, the applicant requests that the application is approved as summarised and recommended in sections 11 and 13 respectively of your officer's report. Thank you, members, for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. If I can now go to Mr. Gibbs on behalf of Marchwood Parish Council. You can address the committee, please, with 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Once again, we find ourselves being the gnat trying to bite a rhinoceros.
We'd like to sort of raise the concerns of the parish council regarding this application. We recognise the principle of development has been agreed, but we are concerned particularly with the areas assigned to B2 and B8 use, and where we're confused about whether a restriction on B2 use should be put in place when a restriction again on B8 use would be more appropriate. We also note the comments of the Environmental Health Department, and they express a significant concern, and we support that concern that they have. We are worried about there being increased B8 use throughout the industrial park in Marchwood, bearing in mind that there are other applications coming forward in the future that may seek even more B8 use within the village, and we express a general concern that the sites in the industrial park have been overdeveloped for open storage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we now have questions for case officer or the speakers. And first of all, I go to Councillor Maureen Holding.
May I say something at this point? I'm unable to stay any further. I've got another meeting to attend, so I will be exiting the meeting at this point. I hope you can understand. I've made my points in behalf of the parish council, but we don't need to make any further comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Councillor Holding.
Yes, hello. I am very concerned with what Marchwood Parish Council has said and the Environmental Health Officer. Now, you say, Mr. Collier, that B8 has already been agreed and cannot be changed. I would like to know from an officer or someone in charge if this is actually correct, because they will be fine, but it's a big worry because this is so close to houses, and I think we will have terrible problems with noise unless B8 is taken out of here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holding. I'll ask Warren Simmons. I think he's already explained this, but if you'd like to come in, Warren, and answer that question.
Yes, they contradicted one another. That's why I asked, you see.
Councillor, sorry. Warren, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can confirm that the 2012 outline consent deals with the principle of the use of the site, and it grants consent for a variety of flexible uses, B1,
but
B,
it can be changed,
B1C, B2 and B8. It doesn't specify that there needs to be a particular mix of those uses. So in principle, any one of those mixed with others or on their own in their entirety would be acceptable, with the exception of B2, which is specifically restricted, I think it's by condition 17 of the outline, in the area of L6 that I said. But all of the impacts on amenity and the uses and their potential impacts on amenity were considered at the outline applications, and conditions were put on to safeguard amenity at that time. So what we're now looking at is the reserve matters. We can't revisit the fundamentals of what was already granted, I'm afraid.
Thank you. What I thought is right, that B8 can be changed, which is the big worry about this application. So thank you very much. I'm happy with everything else.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I think, yes, question to Mr. Collier, so it's a nice coming around. Right, the very well respected organisation, the Environment Health, have expressed significant concerns. But on their ideas, one is an acoustic fence. I don't know if I pronounced that right, I do apologise. I wondered, would you consider, or your IPV would consider putting an acoustics fence? I think L6 is the main problem, but would the organisation consider putting an acoustic fence in, which is one of the suggestions from the Environment Health.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. Was that for Mr. Collier?
Yeah, that's from Mr. Collier.
Yeah.
And
If you'd like to answer that.
well, it could be both to Mr. Collier and to Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Collier.
Thank you. I think, as we've stated previously, those matters of residential amenity have already been considered at the outline permission stage, and we're looking merely to finish off the appearance and layout of the scheme through this reserve matters application, and we wouldn't wish to consider really the acoustic fence issue.
So the acoustic fence is not one of the ideas you're going to take up, or APB are going to take up. It's not going to be considered.
I think we're obviously that area in question is already restricted away from BT use, which is considered the most noisy use, and of course we're not proposing any BT use in that area. It will be purely B8 open storage use, which obviously is not considered as a noisy as an activity when the outline planning consent was issued.
Thank you very much. Members, just to remind you, we can't revisit this on the permissions that have already been given on the outline permissions. So I can go now to Sue Bennison, please. Councillor Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Collier. I'm a ward councillor for Marchwood, and we have some issues with regard to container storage on this site. I'm sure you must have heard about Byams Lane and the issues there. So my comments are with regard to container storage. Now, I'm looking at the 2012 plan, which other members won't be able to see at this moment. But I thank you for restricting B2 use on that portion of L6, which is marked yellow on that plan, which is, as the case officer showed, it's from the thank you. That's the very plan. Thank you, Warren, for that. You can see the area in yellow, which has the restricted B2 use. My question to you is, could you or would you restrict that same area to no container storage? Simple as that. Just that yellow area.
I think already there is a condition, I think, proposed with this reserve matters to restrict the height of any storage in that yellow area to, I think it's a maximum of 10 metres, which we accept. That's
yes, but that's still some 4 height containers. That is extremely imposition on residences that are within a stone's throw, as you can see on that plan. And in the Byams Lane site, they're even closer, and they're 4 and 5 story container height. These containers are extremely noisy when they're being moved about. And all I'm asking you is, I'm not saying B8 storage. What I'm saying is, would you restrict that yellow marked area to no container storage?
Before you answer that, can I bring in Claire Upton-Brown, please?
Yeah, members, this is the planning committee. You've got a detailed officer report in front of you. It's not the role of the planning committee to try and renegotiate the application during the meeting. The members, by all means, ask questions if you're not clear, but you're here to make a decision on a recommendation. If you are wanting clarification from your officers as to whether or not you can impose conditions, then please direct those comments to the officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Can I come back, Chairman?
Who to?
Well, to Claire, really. I am well aware of that, Claire, of what the application is before us, but you are well aware that there are huge issues with container storage where residences are very close, and this is a case in point. And I think it's a reasonable request if the parish council had continued to be here, they would be making this same request. I think it's reasonable to ask the applicant to restrict that yellow area to no container storage.
Thank you. You've already heard the answer from Claire Upton Brown, and we have to accept that. Can I go to Hilary Brown, please?
Yes, question for the officer. Was it then possible to put a condition in about the acoustic fence?
Thank you, Chairman. We this was the idea of the environmental health officer was discussed in-house by myself with senior officers. It was felt that the impacts on amenity were properly considered at the outline consent stage, and it's beyond the scope of the current reserve matters application to revisit that, and it would be unduly onerous and rather unsafe in terms of the tests of planning conditions to impose quite a significant cost and quite a significant undertaking on the applicant on this reserve matters application. So the upshot of it was that the advice of officers is that we can't revisit the amenity acoustic fence issue on this reserve matters application.
Thank you very much. Members will now go into debate. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, let me take my hand down while I remember. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. It would appear that it's down to me again to look at this. This is an industrial site. It has gone through reserved matters. This is just to a certain extent establishing and tidying up what will actually be on the site. I can't see there's any reason which, there appears to be no power that we have to go back and revisit what's there before. I think we have to actually accept what is actually on the paper, that we accept the officer's report. I don't see there's anything else that we can do. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Benison. Sorry, Councillor Maureen Holding I got first. Councillor, you're muted. Okay.
Am I all right now? Yes.
You are.
Yes. My understanding is that we are here to decide these reserve matters. And quite honestly, I think there is so much concern with this being so close to the houses, and with just a couple of tweaks, it would make everybody happy, and I'm sure it'll make the environmental officers happier, because they do not want to have complaints all the time about noise, and we do not want people to be inconvenienced for the sake of a little bit more profit, because that's what it comes down to in the end. And I feel that people matter, and I think it matters that the parish and the local councillor and the local people have gone into this at great depth, and they are worried about this, and I'm quite worried. So I shall not be supporting it for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Councillor Hawkins, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I just like to stop and think of who we're representing here. We're representing the New Forest District, but we're also representing the residents of the New Forest District. And they're very much troubled about this. So therefore, I think we need to listen to what they're saying and just ask the people that want this extension to be a little bit more magnanimous towards the residents and not put any trailers on that yellow outline. We must work together. So let's not be greedy and grab the lot. Just listen to everybody else so everybody's happy. And that's where I would come in. That's what I would vote for. Thank you.
Sorry, muted again. Councillor Benison, did I miss you there?
You did, Chairman, but I didn't mind. Chairman, I am disappointed with the fact that the applicant wouldn't be minded to make that offer of a restriction of container storage on that yellow area that has a B2 restriction on it already. This is a huge issue for the residents in Marchwood that live very close to this site, and we have had an ongoing enforcement issue with a site just around the corner from this one, been going on for, to be honest, ever since I've been a district councillor. So it's ever since 2011, and it is purely and simply container storage adjacent to residential properties. And this is a case in point where the applicant could be a little magnanimous here and make a restriction on that yellow area of container storage, no container storage on that yellow area. Mr. Collier, I shall take this up directly with both Ben Ross and Alistair Welsh, because I think this is something that you could consider without any detriment to your ability to use that site as you wish.
Thank you very much.
And on this application, Chairman, I'm afraid I will not be able to vote for it. I will more than likely abstain. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I need to bring in our, sorry, where are we? I'm losing all the hands down here. Nigel, I need to bring in Nigel to comment on this, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to I think there may be some misunderstanding as to Mr. Collier's status in all this. Mr. Collier, to be clear, is the applicant's agent. I don't suspect he has authority to make this compromise on his client's behalf. So I think it's rather unfair to accuse Mr. Collier of being unable to compromise something that I suspect he's unable to do.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I can't see any further hands going up here for the debate, so we're going to be coming to the vote then. We don't have a proposer yet. Claire, can I bring you? Claire, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, you don't have a proposer yet. But I just wanted to remind members that outline permission has already been granted.
Yeah.
And you can't move away from that, whatever you now feel about it. There is outline permission for these uses, and this application simply relates to the details in terms of layout and appearance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's therefore to bring this to a vote, I'd like to propose that we accept the recommendation on the paper so that we can make a vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I will second that. Councillor Riley.
Councillor Riley. Somebody has a phone ringing. Okay, thank you very much then. So I'll just bring Mr. Collier in. You just have one minute to sum up.
Thank you. If you would like, I can speak to my client now to discuss this issue of the container storage on the yellow area, but I would need 5 minutes to speak to him and then come back.
I would appreciate that, Chairman. If that could be done, I would appreciate that.
Right, I need to bring Claire in again.
Members, this is a planning committee, not a negotiation table.
Yeah.
Members, if you're not happy with the application, then you defer it. We cannot negotiate the contents of an application in a live streamed committee meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry for saying it, but I have to advise you of that.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that clarification, and thank you for the offer, Mr. Collier. But we're going to the vote now on what we actually have on the application. So we have a grant subject to conditions, and that's been proposed by Councillor Sevier, and that's been seconded by Councillor Riley. So we will now go to the vote. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Mr. Collins, for the offer. I will have to abstain on this one.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Abstain.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
I'm going to vote against.
Sorry, Councillor Hawkins, I didn't hear that.
I'm voting against.
Against, thank you. Councillor Maureen Holding.
Against.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Against.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
Against.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Abstain.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
And I am for. So that has been carried. Can I have confirmation, please?
Hello, we've got 8 votes for, 4 votes against and 3 abstentions. So that carries the motion to grant.
Thank you very much. I will now adjourn, and I think we'll take a break now. If we can be back, do you want 20 minutes? We can be back
Please.
by 1:30. 1:30, we'll be back. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Members, we'll now move to application 21/10326, and that's Wickenham Place, Lymington, and that's 53 to 58 on the agenda. And just to remind people, we do seem to be having some issues that if you do have, you won't be able to vote on this. Did I have, Anne? I had you, didn't I? For interest, so yeah.
Yes, thank you. You did. I'm a council member in the town council, but I'm not on the planning committee.
Thank you very much. Okay, over to you then, Kate. You can give your presentation, please.
Thank you. Right. Okay, this is the application for 21 Wickham Place. The proposal is for a single-storey side extension and trellis. The reason it's before committee today is Lymington Town Council have recommended refusal. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. So this is the red line plan. So this is an end of terrace mock Georgian house, which is situated as part of the Wickham Place development, and it backs onto Belmore Lane and there's Powlett Road. As you can see, it's got a larger than average plot, the majority of the garden being to the side. And this is the aerial view. The hatching indicates the conservation area. So as you can see, the site is actually not within the Lymington Conservation Area, but the rear wall sort of runs along the boundary. And as you can also see from this aerial photograph, there are several properties in Wickham Place that already have extensions on the rear, primarily or predominantly conservatories. Okay, this is the existing elevations. So we just got the townhouse. There's no side extension at the moment. And this is the, oh, something's happened there. Oh, sorry, the presentation seems to have disappeared. Bear with me one moment. I've just got a bit of a technical hitch. So my screen, can you? Well, I've got a white screen. So, but when you go to the next one, it's not there. Is that what we're doing? Yeah, I've got just a blank screen, so I've got no idea where my presentation has gone. So if you just bear with me a moment, I'll just try reloading it. Won't be a moment. Sorry about this. Slight technical hitch. Oh, great. Sorry about this. I seem to be having some computer issues at the moment with my connection, so it won't be a moment. I wonder if you still continue to have a problem if another case officer, I don't know, Jim or Viv, could put your one up, and then you can potentially, yeah.
Oh, I'm having problems with mine as well. Sorry, but I can't get a cheap full screen view. I'm just contacting IT.
I've just got diagnosed problems, so let me just go on mute a minute. I'm so sorry about this. We're just trying to find a workaround, so somebody else will put the presentation up for me and I'll just talk you through it. So I do apologise. We're just technical issues beyond our control at the moment. So bear with me a moment. Thank you.
They call it the Lymington swing.
They absolutely don't, David.
So sorry, we're just getting another colleague just to put the presentation up and then I'll be able to talk you through it. So won't be a moment. Thank you.
That's okay.
Don't these computers
Christine,
speed?
okay, just stay calm, Christine. Well, it's the last day. We won't have it ever happen again.
Well, we seem to have it back.
I can see the stress. I can see your fingers are getting a little stressed there.
We haven't, just to let you know, we've not adjourned the meeting.
No.
Can I just confirm? It's Vivian Baxter here. I've shared my screen now with hopefully what is Kate's presentation, so hopefully you can see that. Kate, if you want to let me know which slide to move it to.
Oh, that's not mine, that's yours.
Oh.
We're nearly there. Thank you very much for your patience.
Right. Hopefully this is the right one. Wycombe Place.
That's the one.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Viv. Right, as I was just saying, so this is the aerial shot and the hatching shows the conservation area. And we've got the conservatories on, named predominantly conservatory extensions on the rear of some of the other properties within those terraces. Could I have the next slide, please? Right, so this is the existing elevations where we got to. So the next slide, please. And right, so this is the proposed plans. The application has now been amended. Originally, when it was first submitted, there was also part of the proposal was to create a parking space in the rear and reroute the wall. And the next slide will show that. But if we just stick on this slide, no, can you go back, please? You were too quick for me. Thank you. So here we've got the single-storey side extension. It's quite a modest extension. It's set back from the front elevation and the roof pitch matches that of the existing house. And also we've got some trellis, sort of hit and miss trellis. So you've got trellis panels interspersed with hedging proposed along the boundary wall that will be adjacent to Belmore Lane. It is quite a low boundary wall there at the moment, 1.2 metres high, and as you'll see from my photos shortly, the views are currently achievable into the site from public vantage points. Can I have the next slide, please, Viv? Right, this next slide, there is an error on this. First, the amended plan, if you could just ignore that, because that shows the existing elevations, not the amended plan. So, but this, on the left-hand side, you can see what was originally proposed. And this
These were the plans that went before Lymington Town Council. So part of their objection was in relation to the parking space, but this has now been removed from the proposal and is not now being considered. Thank you. Can we have the next slide, please? Right, so this is just a photograph from Wickham Place. As I said, the side extension will be set back from the front elevation, so it will be limited views from this angle. Next one, please. Right, so then this is a view from Belmore Lane. As you can see, there is easily, I was just standing on the opposite pavement, so you can see views across the site. The trellis that is proposed will be quite lightweight, and there is examples of trellis already on the property. The extension will be well away from the neighbours. Yes, you can view it from the conservation area. The proposed extension will be visible, as will the trellis. But the view of myself is that this will not harm, bearing in mind the other extensions that are on other properties on the Wickham Place. Can I have the next one? Thank you. Again, this is just another view looking down Belmore Lane, so you can see the line of the wall, and obviously you'll see the trellis with the hedging. Is that the final one? And this is the, should be, I think we're getting near to the end of the presentation now. So this is another view looking towards. So you will still see limited views of the extension, but that will be quite screened by the trellis, and it should be well away from the neighbours. So I don't think there'll be any harm to the neighbour amenity. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a statement to be read out for Mrs. Jennifer Baker. If somebody could read that for me, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I preface my remarks by saying that Ms. Baker submitted some photographs. It was explained to her that it's not the council's policy to display photographs submitted by third parties, and she was invited to remove reference to photographs from her submission. She has declined to do so. So I will read her statement verbatim, even though in parts it may not make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Wickham Place is outside of the conservation area, and many modern buildings have been built in the area, including the block of flats on the corner of Belmore Lane and St Thomas Street. The design of the building is in keeping with the style of the house and is far less than 50% of the available garden space belonging to the house, and is a small percentage of the overall footprint of the house. Although the building will potentially be visible from Belmore Lane and Rowlett Road, many houses facing both roads have conservatories built which are a mixture of sizes and designs. Please see photographs. In my opinion, the proposed trellis screening and planting along the boundary wall will soften the street view, and as Rowlett Road only accesses the NFDC and Marks and Spencer's car parks, I do not believe this plan will do anything to spoil the street view. From my local knowledge, the proposed building is unlikely to impinge on the light in either of the neighbouring houses. At the opposite end of the terrace, 19 Wickham Place submitted 3 successful planning applications, 05/84866, 02/76265 and 84/NFDC/126600 to extend the house to the side and the rear and add a large extension, and many houses in Wickham Place that do not abut the road have conservatories and extensions. I do not believe that the response from the council in any way reflects the area of Wickham Place and that the author has visited the site. Quite sure what that last bit means. That's it.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Obviously, she's referring to the Lymington Town Council there. So members, do you have any questions for the case officer, please, for Kate? Councillor Arthur Davies.
Hi, thanks, Chairman. Hampshire Highways have commented. Could we know what they actually said? It just says commented only. Comment only. Have we got any detail on what they've said?
I can just get that up for you and just tell you, so that won't be a problem. But their comments were more to do with the parking space, which is why they were consulted, and obviously that's been removed. But let me just quickly just get that up so I can read it to you, so you've got it and you're made aware of it. Something I can see. Right. Okay,
it's irrelevant really now then.
It is, yeah. They're just saying they were actually asking for more information to do with the visibility display. As I said, this isn't now being considered, so there's nothing about the side extension or the wall. Is that okay, or did you want me to read it out to you in full?
No, thank you. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. No more questions, so we'll go into debate. Members, we are now in debate. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that I will be voting against this one in support of my colleagues at the Town Council. We have a lot of these little mock Georgian terraces in and around Lymington. I think they were fashionable probably in about the 70s or something. I think that putting an extension on would actually spoil the kind of line of these, and I think it would be overdevelopment of that site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I have obviously a counter view on this. I can understand why Councillor Anne Corbridge can say that, but as the other properties around have already had extensions, I think perhaps the precedent has been set. So therefore, I'm going to be very bold and suggest that we take the recommendation on the paper and approve. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I second that.
Who was
Christine
that?
Hopkins.
Christine. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say I'm looking at the photograph on chart 95, which shows a white sort of conservatory thing on the back of the adjoining building. I think this proposal is a much nicer arrangement. Yes, you will see it over the wall, as you can see the little summer house that's there on chart 93. I should be voting for this one, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holding.
Yes, I did in fact have a look at this site last weekend when I shopped at Marks and Spencer's, and I agree that it is much nicer than the extension that's there to another house, and I'm going to vote for this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I normally, reading papers, find myself supporting parishes because of their more intimate local knowledge. But in this instance, I will vote to support the officer's recommendation because I think from what I see, the end result will be an improvement on the general appearance of the area. And as they have said, it doesn't increase the footprint of the house very much. I think all in all, it will be a worthwhile improvement.
Muted again. Yeah, thank you very much. There are no further hands going up, so then we'll move to the vote. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions, and that's been proposed by Councillor Sevier and seconded by Councillor Hopkins. So we're now going to the vote. So Councillor Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4,
Councillor Maureen Holding,
4,
Councillor Christine Hopkins,
4,
Councillor Joe Riley,
4,
Councillor Tony Ring,
4,
Councillor Anne Sevier,
4,
Councillor Michael Thierry,
Abstain.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
Thank you very much, and I'm also for. So that has been carried. If we can have confirmation of that, please.
Hello, I've got 13 votes for, 1 against and 1 abstention, so that carries the motion to grant subject to conditions.
Thank you very much. We don't have any more speakers on the next application, so we don't need to adjourn. The next application then will be 20/11440, pages 7 to 20 on the agenda, 47 to 49 High Street, Fordingbridge. And we'll go straight to the case officer, Jim Bennett, if you'd like to give your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Share my screen with you. Can you see that?
We can, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Yep. As you suggested, this application relates to numbers 47 and 49 High Street in Fordingbridge. Proposal relates to provision of 4 flats and retention of a retail unit at that premises. It was last used some years ago as Martin's newsagents. The reason for it being presented to you today is that Fordingbridge Town Council objected to the scheme, recommended refusal on the same grounds that we have recommended refusal, i.e. loss of retail floor space, the heritage impacts, the amenity impacts on the adjoining owners, although they also wanted a reason for refusal being the lack of off-street car parking, which we as officers felt we couldn't substantiate in this sustainable town centre location. So as you can see from this slide, the premises is within the town centre. It fronts the high street. It's also within a primary shopping frontage, hence the reason for refusal based on loss of retail floor space. This shows the aerial shot. There's possibly a burgage plot to the rear of the listed building, which tails off down to the river. These are more site location plans. This shows the listed building together with the footprint of the proposed development, represented by this cross-hatched area here. These are the existing elevations. They're not very clear. I'm sorry about their quality. That's the roof space existing. These plans show the ground floor retail floor space, which is to be retained. Approximately 40% will be lost by provision of this ground floor residential unit, and this area and parts of the roof will be retained for use by the shop. The development extends to the rear here. This is the new element of the proposal, a new build extension. And with respect to the amenity issues, we have concerns about this bin area here, which is very close to the adjoining neighbours' windows, which I'll show you pictures of shortly. This shows the roof of the proposed extension extending to the south from the existing listed building to the north. This shows the rear elevation proposed. This is the new extension in a contemporary form with a pitched roof. It's also proposed to put a pitched roof over a flat roofed outbuilding, 2-storey outbuilding, which I'll show you pictures of shortly. Again, this shows the side elevation of the new extension. Conservation officer myself consider that the extension is simply too much for this building. Bear in mind its heritage status, listed status. That's not to say that something wouldn't be acceptable in order to bring this development or this building back into a positive reuse. It just needs to be pulled back in terms of its scale and impacts on the heritage asset. This shows the front elevation of the proposal onto High Street. This shows the rear elevation. You can see it's quite an ugly flat roofed extension that's already in existence. That will get a pitched roof, which will enhance it in some ways, but we just feel that the extension proposed in this location here is too much. The bin store is in this location here, adjoining the adjoining property, who has objected to the proposal. Again, this shows the modern two-storey extension and the proximity of the proposal to the windows of the adjoining occupier. And these are the two windows essentially where the bin store is proposed for in between, which is unneighbourly to say the least. So yeah, it's recommended for refusal. Same reasons as Fordingbridge Town Council, except the car parking issue. We didn't feel we could substantiate a reason on that basis. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No public speakers, so questions then to our case officer, please. Can't see any hands up going up for questions.
Chairman, I have put my hand up.
Oh, where are you then?
Should be at the top. No?
No, I can't find you.
There we are. I'll do it again.
Anyway, okay, now. Yeah, got you. Okay. So
yes, it was just a comment really. Mr. Bennett, you've said that this application is really just a bit too big on the back of this building. I'm looking at your photograph, which is number 19, which shows the adjoining property is extending a fair way into the to the back of this property, but presumably that's at a single level. So that's what you mean by you consider that this application is a little bit over the top, where if they modified it a little bit, they might have an acceptable result. Is that what you think?
Yes, it may well be the case that something a little more modest in scale to the rear that extends on the similar footprint might be acceptable, but I've made it clear to the agent that we'd be willing to discuss what might be acceptable through the pre-application process, which he accepts. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any more questions? Then we'll move into debate. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I'm in Fordingbridge, so I do know the area quite well, and it would be lovely to see something done with this shop, and I'm sure something will be done with it in the end. But this, I do have to agree with the officers. This is much too big, and it needs to be a much smaller development. So I would immediately propose, actually, that I would like to make a proposal to refuse this.
I would second that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gosh. Can everybody mute, please? Because we're getting a lot of echo. Councillor Corbridge.
Yeah, I was going to second it, but it's fine. There are so many reasons for turning this one down, and I picked out particularly the two issues of potential damp. You can't start life with a building that's going to cause damp. So I shall definitely be voting against this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Maureen?
No, I was just agreeing with the officers and think they should go for refusal on all the reasons that have been stated.
Thank you. Councillor Sevier. Do we have you, Councillor Sevier?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. I was muted. I'm normally very good. No, I've been offline, Madam Chairman, so I will have to abstain. Just another to go. It's not fair when the elements can try to be against you. Yes, obviously, I picked up the end of the meeting. The Fordingbridge Town Council are concerned about parking, particularly in the High Street, as it's a B road and our through road. So it is important. I know we can't actually put that in our reasons, but that I can assure you in the High Street is a problem for us. So I will now mute myself and I will be abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. I can't see any more hands going up, so we will move to the vote. We have a grant. No, sorry, we have a refuse. And that's been proposed by Councillor Bellows and seconded by Councillor Holding. So we'll go for the vote, and this is to refuse. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
Abstain.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
Thank you. And I'm for. So apart from one abstention, that has gone through. Could you
we haven't had a vote from Councillor Thierry.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Thierry.
What do you think? Abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next application, which is the same premises. And this is for listed building consent. So I don't see any point in a debate on this one. I think we'll just go straight to the vote unless somebody has anything that they want to say.
The case officer might want to say something in relation to the application.
Okay, would you like to say something, Mr. Bennett?
I can do. I mean, the proposal is, as you say, it's exactly the same as the previous one, although this one is purely related to the listed building application. So the only considerations we've got in this instance are those in respect of the impact of the proposal on the fabric and appearance of the listed building. Again, it's on the agenda because Fordingbridge have asked for the amenity impacts on the neighbour, retail loss, and car parking to be listed as reasons for refusal. So that's all. Thank you, Chair. I won't go through the presentation. It's the same as the last one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I need a proposer, please.
I'll propose that one.
And that was, sorry.
That was Councillor Anne Bellows again.
Thank you. And second?
I'll second it. Anne Corbridge.
Anne Corbridge. So the recommendation is to refuse, and this has been proposed by Councillor Bellows, seconded by Councillor Anne Corbridge. Then we'll now go to the vote. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning. Oh, sorry, he's not here. Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Maureen Holding.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Abstain.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
And myself, 4. So apart from the one abstention, that goes through. And can you confirm the vote again for me, please?
Yes, I've got 14 votes for refusal.
Thank you very much. Sorry, did you say one refusal? It's an abstention.
I meant votes to refuse the application.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah, okay. So that concludes that item. We're going on to the last one now, which is 5 Sycamore Court High Street Fording Bridge, application 20/11281, pages 27 to 32 on the agenda. No speakers, so we'll go to Vivian Baxter then, please, for the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully you can see my presentation. You good? Good. Okay, this is an application for the repair to a turret on the top of 5 Sycamore Court in High Street Fording Bridge. You can see the site area here. It's actually a property that's just set behind the frontage buildings on the High Street, and can't actually be seen from the High Street at all. The flat 5 is in the octagonal part that I'm highlighting now, which is a 3-storey element to the building and has a multifaceted roof with a turret on the top. At present, the turret is in a very poor state of repair and the top floor flat is experiencing water ingress in periods of heavy rainfall. And as you can see from the photograph on this drawing, it's looking a bit under the weather, and in fact one of them, it has a tarpaulin over it to protect the top floor flat from the elements at the present time. At the moment, the green area shown on the plan is a timber structure with a lead roof. The proposal would be to remove the lead roof, take away the rotten timbers, replace them with what they're classing a plastic wood, and then replacing the lead as it is at the moment on the top. So it's literally just the horizontal slats that would be replaced. Here we can see a close-up. These photographs were taken by the applicant using a drone, so you can see that the damage that exists, and it's not in a very good state of repair. And as I've explained, it can only be seen from the car park at the rear of the property. And you can see from these photographs that there are modern buildings with huge flat roofs adjacent in the environment that it's situated. This is a photograph taken from the edge of the pub car park and the public car park at the rear. To the left of the picture is a protected tree within the site. There's a further protected tree off camera, both of which partly screen the building from the car park as well. My recommendation is to approve, but this is against the views of the Town Council and the Conservation Officer. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Do any members have questions? Councillor Holding? You're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry, Christine, my hand must have stayed up from last
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
I'll get rid of it.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, it's a bit of an echo there. No, this is to the officer to move in there. I'm trying to get my head around the Conservation Officer's comments, and that the replacement material is not natural, whether in the same way. Now, the Conservation Officer is not here. When we used to be in Appellatory Court, we used to have the views of the Conservation Officer, which was really helpful. I'd just like to know your views on it, Vivian. What do you think of those comments? That I mean, obviously you've gone against the view on it, that it's not natural and not weather in the same way as timber. I just can't understand those comments.
Okay, from their point of view, as I understand it, because it's in a conservation area, clearly their first port of call would be to have a traditional material, and the type of material that is proposed in this instance is not what you would class as traditional. It's not a natural naturally occurring substance. I've looked at the website for the manufacturers of the proposed material who recycle wood and create a plastic wood with it. I've looked at their products and they have a texture to them to make it look as though it's wood, although given the distance that you're not going to see it from the street. It's a modern building. It's a very small part of the building, because not only is it that 3-storey element, there's a 2-storey element behind it and a further building within the same curtilage of this site. So I think under the circumstances, given that it can only be seen from outside of the conservation area, I've taken the view that what they're proposing will not only represent an immediate improvement on the situation, but it will ensure that future maintenance issues are fewer and further between.
You've summed that up very well, Vivian. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Councillor Benison.
Thank you. So have I understood you correctly that everything that we are seeing on that picture, which is white, presently wood, is going to be plastic wood? Is that what you're saying? You're muted.
Vivian, you're muted.
Sorry, the vertical sections of the turret, which are currently wood, would be replaced with a plastic wood. The lead pointed bit on the top would be replaced once the works have been completed.
What about the veins? The horizontal veins? They're going to be plastic.
The slats.
Yes.
Yes, all of those. That's that section. I think it measures about 0.8 of a metre. So it's not a huge height, given that it's a 3-storey building with quite a steep pitched roof.
Could they not consider a hardwood and paint it?
No, Sue, Councillor Benson, we're not going down this one again, redesigning. Can I move on, please? Does anybody else want to ask?
Not redesigning, Chairman, it's the material that's being used.
Well, we've been told what material's being used, and that's what we need to make our judgment on.
If I could just sort of pipe up at that point, the applicants were made aware of the Conservation Officer's comments, and they responded explaining that they particularly wanted to use this material in order to reduce the maintenance costs and the impact, because to replace this turret, they're going to have to get scaffolding, which I understand is quite a heavy outlay in order to change something that is relatively small.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There's no more hands going up for questions, so we'll go into debate.
Hello.
Councillor Corbett, was that a question or debate?
No, it's a debate.
Okay, fine.
Speedy on the hand there. I think, I'm sorry, but I think this is a no-brainer. I think I'm definitely going to vote to support this, because clearly, just having had to have some scaffolding myself to get some work done on it, it's a huge expense, and this needs to be done speedily, because obviously if water's coming in, so I will be supporting it. And I'd just like to remind members that you've all just voted a couple of applications ago for the modern extension station in Lymington, and that was fine. So just wanted to put that little note in and say I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sevier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. As on the paper, we obviously have been, it's going to be a bit of plastic looking wood. Believe me, I have stood below that hexagonal building many times, and you can't hardly see the pimple on the top. And I'm absolutely sure if it looks like wood close up, it looked like wood from a distance. So if it had been a huge expanse of a roof or whatever, it would have been different.
Thank you very much. Councillor Benison, is that a new hand?
It's a new hand, Chairman.
Okay.
I have 2 of these on my roof at this moment, which 18 months ago we had to repair. And yes, we had to put scaffolding up. We had the top, as you've just said, taken down. They're very heavy. And a very good carpenter rebuilt ours is square. We have 2 of them. They're square, but exactly the same as that. And an extremely good job he made of it. I painted them myself. So in actual fact, I cannot vote for this to be replaced with plastic wood. This is a characterful building. It should be replaced in materials with which it was built in the first place. Hardwood lasts many, many years if it's correctly put together and correctly painted. So I might be a lone voice, Chairman, but I should be voting against this on the basis of the material that's being used. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I totally disagree with Councillor Bennison here. Totally agree with Councillor Corbridge. It's a no-brainer, this one. It's got to be a no-brainer. Common sense must prevail.
Yeah.
We've got a leaking turret. You would not know the difference. The only person who probably knows it is the conservation officer. And it's a shame she's not here for me to question. No-brainer. We've got to vote for this. I propose we vote what's on the papers.
I would second that.
Thank you, Councillor Holding. Did you want to say something else, Councillor Holding?
I think it's all been said. It's sheer common sense and a no-brainer, and it's far too expensive to put scaffolding all the way up there. I have seen it and I know just how high it is. It'd be dreadful expense for them.
Thank you. Councillor Sevier.
I just want to say this is not a listed building. Now, if it'd been a listed building, I would have said, yes, we need to make sure somebody who buys a listed building should repair it as it is. But this is not listed, and it's 3 stories and nearly 4 stories up. You won't see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holding, did you put your hand up again?
No, it's just not coming down.
Okay.
It will not do as it's told this afternoon, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you very much. There's no more hands then, so no further debate. So we'll close that. We'll go to the vote. So this is to grant subject to conditions, and that's been proposed by Councillor Davies and seconded by Councillor Holding. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass. Councillor Glass, are you with us? Councillor Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Holding.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Tony Ring.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
Can I come back to Councillor Alan Glass? Are you there? No response. So I'll go to Michael Thierry, and I guess it's going to be abstain.
Councillor Glass is in the lobby, according to my screen.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you've assumed something which is utterly incorrect.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Can we have your decision then, please?
You see, you cannot read my mind.
No, I can't.
It's 4.
Good. Thank you. And did we get Alan Glass?
He was in the lobby, and therefore he obviously wasn't in the meeting.
Okay then.
My
So-
battery's went flat. We've been talking for so long.
Okay.
So I've come in on another computer.
So
I missed
did you see it? Did you see the debate? Are you going to
I'll
vote?
have to abstain.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, can we have the conclusion of that vote then, please?
What was your vote,
Oh,
Chairman?
sorry, mine's 4 as well. See, Michael Thierry's confusing me.
Hello, we've got 13 votes for and then 1 abstention, so that carries the motion to grant.
Thank you very much. So that concludes that item, and that brings this meeting to an end, and hopefully the next meeting will be back in the chamber. We don't have a definite date for that at the moment, but you will be kept informed. So just wish you a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.